once a few years ago. I think it was about maybe 2003, something like that. I have a very bad memory for time, so don't trust me when I give you a date. So I was here in Albagnano at Rinpoche's house together with him, and it was a weekend. And there were many people had come to be with him. So he was giving teachings. I don't remember which teachings or empowerment it was, but it was a special moment, and there were a lot of people who had come. At a certain point, it was evening, and he called me and he said to me, "No, we need to go to Geneva now." I said, "Rinpoche, wait a minute. We have more than 200 people here, and you want to go to Geneva? I mean, what about the people?" No, we go to Geneva and then we'll come right back. What's in Geneva? No, because there are Buddha's relics in Geneva. I said, okay, but they're not gonna go anywhere. They're gonna stay there for a few days. Yes, yeah, but we need to go for the opening. How are we gonna do? No, we'll drive at night. We'll see the relics, and we'll be back before lunch. I said, "Oh, but Rinpoche, why? Why this hurry? Why?" And he said, "Because I want to bring the relics here." I said, "Okay, just a minute. These relics can go for them to they were offered by some countries to the United Nations, and there was a very specific rule. They before being brought to the headquarters of the United Nations in New York, they go to one city for one time, and why Albagnano? I mean, Italy is a great country, but Albagnano is a little small. He said, no, it will be like this. And then at a certain point, what he said to me, which is the point that I wanted to share with you today, he said, it's not given that I'll be able, but every time that there's an opportunity, you need to do everything you can to catch it, because if it goes well, great. If not, then that's fine too. And at that point, okay, let's go. So we drove at night, through the Semplon Pass with the ice, and then we got there in the morning, and we got to the park at the United Nations. And then Carlotta was working in Geneva, and so the drivers went to sleep at her house, and we went there. And the next day, who was here was actually the custodian of the relics, and so Rinpoche actually was able to bring the relics to 13 different countries to go along, and even Brazil. That was marvelous. And when in his genius, Rinpoche said, "Okay, I want to invite the relics to Italy," and then the city was Milan, and it was an important city, but it's very important. But we're going to keep the relics in Albagnano. So it means that every day they went back and forth between Milan and Albagnano. So that was the way to bring the relics to Albagnano. And Rinpoche, a couple of times he said to me, the point is, we need to plant many seeds, and some will give fruit, and some won't. And if we see the life of Rinpoche himself, starting from he was young, he always created many, many things. And of these things, some things gave marvelous fruits, results and others not, and that's fine, because no one has the ability to foresee all the variables that exist. I saw Rinpoche put energy into a tremendous amount of energy into things that didn't actually bear any fruit, and in other things that became absolutely marvelous, things that people didn't believe in. So when we have opportunities, and when opportunities present themselves to us, first of all, you need to be able to see them, that there are opportunities in every moment for all of us. They're always present. But it's not said that we're able actually to see them. But before being able to see the opportunities, we have a small problem before all that, which is knowing what we want. Because if I don't have a specific desire, then I won't, of course, see the opportunities to realize that wish, if I don't have a specific wish. So if I really want, for example, let's take the classic example. If I really want to manage to overcome my anger, and this is a clear objective, strong within me, and I see someone saying negative things, I say, oh wow, look at, there's my opportunity to practice patience. But if I don't have this objective to overcome my anger, then that person speaking badly is simply an object of aversion. So what I mean is, before being able to take advantage of an opportunity, this depends on what we want, first of all. And this is not that easy. Excuse me if I put it in these terms. I mean, there are those who are really able to dream and see farther. These people are very, very special. And those who are able to put energy there. Because we have many beautiful characteristics, but among our human characteristics, I think one of the most special is our creativity, our ability to imagine, our ability to dream, imagine something. If we see so many of the things that we have today, material or concrete things, they have arisen from an idea, from someone's imagination. Even when we see many things that develop in science, they even have arisen from science fiction, because the hardest thing is to have the idea. I mean, it's also hard to realize it, but first we need to have the idea, we need to imagine, and then one needs to really believe in that, try to find the opportunities and put energy in that direction. But to do all of that, then there's that, it starts with that spark of imagination, that kind of utopia, we can say. And the utopia is something very important, actually, even if in the modern time it's seen as something quite silly. Why do you believe in something that you know can't come to be? Instead, believing in something that goes beyond the context of the present, of what is. One believes that something is possible, that allows us to go beyond this so-called standard in which we find ourselves, and to make changes, and maybe we need generations to get there. But it's very important to have that dream, have that vision. And the most important people in our society, in the world, generally speaking, in my opinion, are those who were able to dream and to share their dream and to make others dream, which is not at all easy. Something that worries me about that nowadays is I have this feeling that we don't allow ourselves to dream anymore. It's sufficient to have a pleasurable life with many, many pleasures, few problems, and then, pizza, Netflix, and we're fine. And then life goes on. This reminds me, once I watched a documentary that talked about Western philosophers, and at a certain point, this commentary was talking about Nietzsche, and there was something that touched me. Nietzsche talked about what he called, I listened to it in English, it was called The Last Man. The last man, and he was making reference to those in modern times, which had not yet occurred. He said, in his opinion, he thought what was going to happen was that people would have killed God, which means like taking God away from the center of their lives, because up to a certain point, what gave meaning to life was what gave meaning to life was doing something for someone that was higher than oneself. And so instead, at this point, the objective had become more for oneself. And he said that at a certain point, this was going to bring a side effect. According to him, there were positive effects, but also negative side effects. And the negative effect would have been that these so-called last men, which would be us, in our modern time, they would be people who would have they would have been able to look at the stars and say, oh, how wonderful, but they wouldn't even have the strength to desire to get there, because given the amount of energy it would take to get there, it was better just to stay where they were. It's like saying, just the thought of having to put so much energy into something was enough to renounce to it and say, no, it's better just to stay where we are. So it was something about like not having the energy to want to become something better, not wanting to be something different. And this is very dangerous. This aspect of not dreaming and staying in one's own comfort zone. The danger is to stay the same and to not direct oneself to grow, to better oneself, and just to live life as an end an end in itself, and it gets used up by life itself. And this happens often. We just use up our life with our life itself. And this reminds me also of the opposite. There was a Lama, Drigo Khyentse Rinpoche. He was a very important Lama of the Nimapa tradition. He was very close to Trikari Rinpoche, and he was one of the most important lamas in our history. He dies, his reincarnation is found in a Tibetan family in India. They're quite modern, and when his reincarnation was found, the parents go to other lamas and monks who had found the reincarnations, and they tell them, okay, you say that he's the reincarnation, but first he's going to follow a normal life with us up to university, and then he can decide if he wants to be a lama or not. And they tried to convince tried to convince the parents, that he needed to have a certain education, but the parents said absolutely no. If he wants to be Buddhist, it'll be up to him. And so they weren't able to convince the parents. And so what happens is when they would visit monasteries, the child was really happy. And when they took this decision that the child couldn't follow this path right away, and then so the child actually started getting a fever. He started to get sick, and every time they brought him to a monastery, he would be better. And they brought him home, and he would get sick, and they brought many doctors. Nobody could understand. And then at a certain point, when the parents talked to this main lama who had recognized him, the lama said, "You need to understand that your child is not an ordinary being. And for the great beings, from the bodhisattvas and up, the great realized beings, life is not an end in and of itself. It's a tool, and it's a tool to bring the teachings and help people with the dharmas. And if these conditions can't happen or are not allowed, then he's just going to go and find another condition. He can die and find another life." And at that point, the parents chose. They chose to allow him to follow the monastic education, and he was never sick again. This is just an example to give us the idea that life should be used as a tool, as a means, more than an end in and of itself. It's a tool for what? And here we need to find it. I can tell you mine, but it's something that we need to believe in, something we need to wish for. At the basis, what happens is that we all want the same thing. We all want to be well, and we don't want to suffer. We know it. We've said it 30,000 times. So what determines if something is meaningful or not is that if it's something that helps us reach that objective of not suffering and being well for us and for others, where we're able to recognize something that could help sustain or be a part of this whole of helping the well-being of people and animals and nature and our own as well. There we can put our energy. There are those who want to dedicate it through taking care of sick people. There are those who want to do it through education or through a kind conduct, helping, sustaining people around, or those who think that the best thing they can do to help other people is by finding an inner balance, interpersonal balance. Once we're able to dream and we see the different images that we have here of Buddha and all of these Tibetan Buddhist images that we have here, in reality, they're dreams, they're utopias, they're showing us something that we can do too. They're giving us a direction. Every once in a while, when I come into the Gompa with someone who had never come, and I try to explain, and we start with the colors that show us what we need to transform, that show us what we want, what our wishes are, our objective, our wish. And let's start with green from my side here. Our objective is to not have fear, to not have uncertainty, have determination and clarity in our actions, to not be taken by jealousy or envy, to be able to rejoice for the happiness of others, the virtue of others. The white, to live in harmony with oneself and with others, to not be attached to an idealized realize that doesn't correspond to our direct experiences. Living what's subjective is something objective, leaving what is impermanent as impermanent, having inner space. The yellow represents that we want to have an identity that doesn't require comparing ourselves with others, and as a consequence, we don't feel neither superior nor inferior to anyone. That we see the joy in sharing, in giving. Because when I offer something to someone, it's as if I'm doing it for myself. There's no longer any distinction between what is for me and what is for someone else. Red represents having a stable mind, concentrated, because one has been able to find peace and satisfaction. Because dissatisfaction creates worry. Satisfaction, the state of peace where one doesn't desire anything different from what one has, and so is fine, is well where he is, and there can be higher objectives. It doesn't mean that one doesn't have better objectives, but one is not in conflict with what one has. And when one has this kind of peace that comes with satisfaction, naturally one is more concentrated. If we see in the text like Bodhisattva Charavatara, where it talks about how to develop concentration, a good part is about developing satisfaction. Until you have satisfaction, until you are satisfied, you're not going to have good concentration because the mind's always looking for something else. And then here in the center, here we have blue. That represents to being able to relate with everything and everything, everyone and everything, relate to them through love, where the suffering of others is as important to us as our own, and happiness as well. And as a consequence, we don't act with aggression or violence. We don't desire the suffering of anyone. So, as a consequence, we have patience, a deep state of peace and of joy in everything that we do. For me, these 5 points is saying already that we're dreaming. Is being able to imagine ourselves like this. Once we can dream, at that point, we need to begin to have awareness and observe what are the opportunities that are present to realize that dream. Let's remember that things are not immediate. Once I was with Rinpoche and he asked me something related to a particular situation, and I said, oh, but that's nothing. It's just something really small. And it was. something very small. It was really something that had happened that was really quite insignificant. And then Rinpoche said, the small things are the most important ones. And in that moment I understood, this is also the blessing of the Guru, that those same words, the same words said by someone else in another context maybe wouldn't have touched me that way. But when Rinpoche said something, and he didn't, and he didn't speak that much, but they really had this ability to open my mind. And what I understood at that moment is that nothing comes from nothing. And things are not created from one instant to the next, but they're these small things. It's like that small crack. And that crack just gradually gets bigger. It still seems like it's nothing, but then when you actually go to look at it, you have a total abyss, a massive, major problem that you don't know how to manage. So small things, positive and negative, where there's a small conflict. For example, if it's not faced when it's small, the tendency of that conflict is to grow. If we're able to generate something positive, something that's small, and we're able to sustain it small, gradually, that's going to grow. So it's really important for us to dream. An individual dream, and also collectively. What do I desire? What do I wish for the society, for the world in which I live? Let's allow ourselves to dream. And at the same time, what do I want for myself? Who do I want to be? What do I want to be? And once we're able to dream in this way, and Buddha helped us, our masters have helped us, this dream of being a bodhisattva, being a Buddha, there are different levels that we can reach, in this objective of ours, but it needs to be our own dream, our own objective, and at that point we can see the objectives, we look for the objectives in every day, every moment, to realize that dream. And every place we go, it's an opportunity. Everywhere we go, we need to plant a seed. We try to put our energy there, so that life is no longer just a life that gets used up by life itself. Instead, it becomes a means to realize something. It's obvious that in our lifetime there are many things in life, in our own livelihood. There are many things, in life that use up life. Like, it's a little bit like saying, if I have something, that thing has a function. I always thought about this when the first time I bought a car, and I had this imprint from the beginning. I told myself, this is a tool that I need to take me from point A to point B in total in safety. If it gets scratched, is it still able to take me from point A to point B safely? Yes. So then what does it matter if it gets scratched? So it has a function. So what happens is, if I begin if I start putting more energy into the car than the energy that the car is actually giving me. Let's use the metaphor that is used. Like I buy a car to go to work, and I go to work to be able to pay for my car, and I'm just running around in a circle. The point is that when we have something, and if at a certain point our life is being used up by that thing, instead of that everything being able to serve us, then there's something that's not going in the right direction. When we see that, yes, this body is important and we need to take care of our body in an excellent way, because if the body is not healthy, our life is going to be used up even more by putting energy into our body. When we have a healthy body, it's easier to put energy into what we want. When our body is sick, the body then naturally takes up a lot of our energy, our mental energy, our material energy, emotional. On many levels, it's very important to take care of our health. But the body is a tool. It's not an end in and of itself. Life in itself, the people we meet, what we do, these are all means for what? From my point of view, for being able to interact, to learn, to better ourselves, to interact so that we can live with more harmony, within ourselves and with others. And I think that the world, what the world needs most, are people, beings who have a deep state of wisdom and balance and satisfaction. This is what we need. Then there are so many other things that are fine, but I think that this is really what we need. So without any fear of getting out of our comfort zone, also because something that helps me go beyond my fear is thinking that thing is not a possibility, but it's actually a certainty. That sounds a little strange, but it like saying, let's say I'm afraid of losing my comfort zone, going out of my comfort zone. Well, you can be sure that it's going to happen, so don't worry. Sooner or later, you're going to come out of your comfort zone. So instead of stressing about that, just prepare yourself for being able to face that moment when it does happen, in the sense that, being afraid of dying. Well, we are going to die, so we need to prepare ourselves instead of just being fixed in the fear. And in our lifetime, naturally, it's going to happen that we come out of our comfort zones. But when we do it with an objective, something positive that brings us to grow, instead of getting outside of our comfort zone by something that happens that's negative, that's something we don't want, etc. But just in a few words, being able to take advantage of the opportunities that there are, we need to have wishes. We need to be able to really live and not just live to survive. And in this living, we need to dream. We need to have something that gives us a direction and take care of every small thing that takes us in that direction, because it's the small things that create great ones. Things, they don't happen in the opposite way. And we're all able. Once I heard the story of Joseph Pilates. It was on a radio program. I was in Shigatse in Tibet, you can imagine. So I was in Tibet. There was a time I would spend all day, from early morning to the evening. I spent time with practices and study, and during lunch I would listen to the radio in Tibet. through internet, and there was a program of Italian Radio 24, which talked about the meetings with people that brought positive things, and it was done really well. And in one of these transmissions, they talked about the life of Joseph Pilates. So Joseph Pilates, he was a person as a child. He had he was always sick. He was always weak. He always had fever. But he had a dream. He had this strong will. He wanted to be a great athlete. His father had a gym for athletes. And so he grew up among very strong people, and he wanted to train, but he didn't have the basis to get there. And his father, who was a great trainer, they didn't give him any support. And they said, "Oh, you can play if you want," but instead he trained harder than anyone else. He stayed late. Didn't matter if he had a fever or if it was painful. He was always there training, and little by little, with his great dedication and effort, he was able to overcome his weak physical condition. And along his path, he was able to see what he was able to do to go beyond his own difficulties. Years later, he became a kind of athlete. He was physically able to be very healthy, very well. And during the war, when he was closed up on an island, there were soldiers that had been injured, and he used his own experience to heal these hurt soldiers, and that's where his techniques come from. And until his last years, he had a perfect body. At 80 years old, he had a body that was healthier than all of us, but certainly healthier than mine. But so what allowed him to reach this, to have this such a healthy body and create this system that has helped so many people? Because he had a strong wish, and he believed in himself. No one around him believed him. Even if he, as a child, had said, "No, I want to be an athlete," nobody believed him. They say, "Okay, yeah, sure, little boy." But he believed in himself. And also in Buddhist teachings, we talk a lot about the power of effort, but at the basis of effort, there's aspiration, and at the basis of aspiration, there's faith. There's believing that you can do it. And many of us, we can do it. Let's remember that those who have done great things have begun, they weren't great from the beginning. This reminds me of Lamchung, who was a disciple of Buddha's. I'll make a long story short. He wasn't very smart, and at a certain point, his brother, who was very intelligent, was also a disciple of Buddha. It was an important disciple, and one day this brother got fed up because he was trying to teach him a simple prayer, which is like, "In Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings." He was trying to teach him this, and then his brother wasn't able to get it. Once he had memorized the first line, he had already then to get to the second one, he had already forgotten the first. Instead, all the farmers who were all around, they had memorized. And One day, this brother who was always very kind, he really got fed up and lost his patience with him. And as this brother walked away very, very sad, he said, even my brother, who was his idol, even my brother who's so patient and so special, I have made him lose even, his patience. I'm worth nothing. I'm going to go. I'm leaving. And as he's leaving, he met Buddha Shakyamuni. And Buddha asked him, why are you crying? What happened? He said, oh, because I'm useless. I mean, it's useless for me to be here. I only bother everyone. He says, no, come with me. I'll give you something to do. Here, take this broom and sweep. That's it. And he was very happy that he started cleaning, sweeping. So he would clean, we would be there cleaning the gompa and, at the entrance of the gompa, in the gompa, and he would spend his whole day cleaning, sweeping. And after weeks and months, and I imagine maybe even years have gone by, gradually he started to have more and more inner clarity. His mind became more and had more and more clarity, because he was there with joy and faith. He was there cleaning. That's all he was doing. And one day, as he was cleaning, he had a kind of insight, clarity that said to him, when Buddha told me to clean, he wasn't telling me to clean the dirt of the ground, but the dirt of my anger that I'm going to clean with patience and love. It wasn't the dirt of the ground, but it's the dirt of my unlimited desire and dissatisfaction that I'm going to clean with satisfaction. And so there's this Tibetan verse that says, speaking Tibetan, so as he was cleaning, in his awareness, he realized he was cleaning his own mental defilements, and he went on like this until gradually he was able to have an inner clarity and actually go beyond his own limits. So then at that point he was able to receive the teachings, meditate, and receive and reach realizations that many others around him, great disciples, had not been able to reach. So what helped him was his determination, his constancy, his effort. Sometimes being intelligent is not helpful because one relaxes in their own comfort zone. Having good conditions is not necessarily a good thing, because one relaxes in the good conditions that one has. And if we look at our own story, in whether it be spiritual or mundane, often those who've been able to do something great are those who didn't have such favorable conditions, but those who believed in their dream and put so much energy in there. If we look at Lama Michel Rinpoche himself, he came to the West, as we say in Brazil, with one hand in front and one hand behind, like to say he had nothing. And he was able to do so much because, so for many reasons, but he never stopped believing, not even for a minute, and looking for opportunities and putting energy into his dream. And for this, I invite all of you to set your goal and put your energy there. And let's remember that we can all do it. There's no one who can't do it. But we're not going to manage if we just stay where we are and without putting any effort into it. So it's time for our dedications.
Sankar Chinle Chokchur Gepadan Losan Tempe Drume Sasum Ki Drove Ne Gyuruchi Kewa Kuntu Yanda Lama Dan Drame Cheki Pela Longche Chin Sadan Lamge Yunte Rabzone Dorje Change Koban Yurtobesho Nimo Dele Tsindele Nime Kuyan Delekshin Nintsen takto delek pe kuncho sumke jinge lop, kuncho sumke ngodrubot sol, kuncho sumke trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Buona giornata, grazie a tutti.